Hello, Spiritists. Here I am again, Luis Lima, speaking to you directly from Florida, and this is Kardec Radio. As always, we use this space from Kardec Radio. By the way, 10th anniversary this year. Never forget that. Such an incredible journey. So I'm here Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to discuss to talk about our program, Spiritism, A Closer Look. And we are discussing one of the most interesting and probably the longest topic in Spiritism, which is evolution. This is our program number 4. And as always, we invite you to make your comments. You can always send us comments and suggestions down here where you see kardecradio.com. We would love to listen from you. And we are going to continue today, program number 4. And, you know, we start where we left, exactly where we left last time. So at the end of each meeting, each virtual meeting like this one, we publish a question. And we invite you, actually, we encourage you to participate and cast your answer. We're going to give you the link to the question of the week at the end of this transmission here. Anyhow, for last week, here's the question that was posted. I'm just going to display it here for you. So according to Spiritism, we wanted to see how these two things, the spiritual and material principles, they interact in terms of evolution. So the options were both of these principles, spiritual and material, evolve at the same pace. Second option, B, they evolve, both of them, but not at the same pace. Third option, C, only the spiritual principle evolves, the material does not. And number 4, option D, the other way around, only the material principle evolves, the spiritual does not. And I gave you a chance down there in the 5th line to go back and revisit the Spirit's Book Part 1, because that's where the answer is going to come from. Okay, we had some people answered C, some people answered D. The correct answer is C. C. The spiritual principle evolves always. The material principle does not. Matter is matter. Material principle is inert. It doesn't do anything. The spiritual principle does. The intelligent principle does. The spirit does. It manipulates matter to learn how to progress. Matter is just matter. The carbon atoms are just carbon atoms. They don't do anything by themselves. Hydrogen atoms are hydrogen atoms. They don't do anything by themselves. So for this question here that we had last week, this is the right answer, C. Okay? So hopefully you were able to participate with us. And don't miss at the end of this transmission here. Even if you're not watching live, you still have the opportunity to participate because we leave the question open for 1 week. So you will have your choice, your option to participate today. Okay, so let's pick up from where we left. We left on this very polluted screen here. Of course, we didn't throw the screen at you. We went little by little, developing little thing by little thing until we get to all of this. All of this, it means that there's something that is intelligence, and those are the 3 boxes you see on the left side: spiritual principle, intelligent principle, and spirit. Above this, God's and everything else is material principle / universal cosmic fluid. We're going to discuss this a little bit today. So in yellow, this is what we did last time. In yellow, what you see here, this big square, is what science studies. That's what they do. They study exactly this, okay? Now, the other part on the left side here, okay? Who studies the rest of it? We do, Spiritism. So Spiritism studies the intelligent principle, the spiritual principle, the spirit. Science does not. They study the other things. They study material, the material world. That includes, you see here, quantum physics and quantum mechanics, physics, chemistry, and it goes on and on and on and on. So that clearly defines what we study and what they study. Okay, so this is where we're going to start from. Now, for us to study the intelligent principle, or the spirit, or the spiritual principle, these things, the intelligence, let's just call a general word intelligence. The intelligence develops and evolves based on the interaction with matter. So that's how things happen all along. There has to be interaction with matter. So that brings in something very interesting for us Spiritists to study the intelligence. We kind of need to know and or study a little bit at least, or rely on science to give us information on the other side. The only difference is when science studies all of these things that they study, they are coming from the materialistic paradigm. We are coming from a different angle. So we are looking at the same thing, but from different angles. That's why sometimes information, one tells you more about a particular subject than the other. All right, so let's keep going here. And then we're going to study today, we're going to talk about fluids, because the material principle, as you saw, it all starts in something that is called the universal cosmic fluid. What is that? Let me tell you in advance, let me tell you this. If we were to study fluids at length and with the depth that we would like to, that alone would be several months. We're not doing that because our topic is evolution, but we need to go through the kind of a bare minimum, if you will, that will allow us to take conclusions and understand how evolution takes place. So today we are going to talk a little bit about fluids, starting with, let's call it the king of all fluids, right? The universal cosmic fluid. Also, there are different names for this. Spirit Andre Luiz calls divine plasma. There's several different names. We're going to stick to the original name from the Spiritist Codification by Allan Kardec, universal cosmic fluid. So we're going to stick to this one. Okay, this is, if we could understand that this is the first hand emanated from God, the first emanation from God, as pure and direct as it can be. Now, as things happen, as the spiritual principle starts interacting with the universal cosmic fluid, like we saw last time, it starts modifying that. So there are several different levels of, I would say, transformation from the universal cosmic fluid. Let's try an analogy here. Let's say I give you like 100 little Lego blocks, or Lego bricks as they call. Okay, so I give you 100 of those. Well, you can build a lot of things. You can build a house, you can build a car. So you can create a lot of things from the original Lego blocks that I give you. But the original Lego blocks are not the purest thing in terms of matter ever, because the factory had to assemble those by picking up from, chemical polymers and different things and plastic. So when we get the Lego in our house, when we buy the little blocks, they are not the universal cosmic fluids in quotes. They are way far from that. That's a modification. And if you reverse engineering, if you disassemble the block, you go back to the chemicals and polymers and so forth that come from someplace else, There's a lot of transformation. At the end, we're going to go back to bosons, leptons, and everything that we spoke, atoms and protons and neutrons, everything we spoke last time. If I give you electrons, protons, and neutrons, you cannot use them to build a house with Lego blocks. So you do not have access to the very source. We have access to the immediate source. which is the Lego block. It's same thing here. So from the universal cosmic fluid, things start to be modified. So there is a group of spirits, the most advanced, most evolved possible, that are as close to God as you can be. These can touch the universal cosmic fluid. They can modify it on a first layer. Let's call them layers. So they can modify to a first layer and create what we call cosmic dwellings. These have to be extremely evolved spirits. They're almost aligning with God. Below that, some other groups of spirits, a little less evolved than those, are going to take these cosmic dwellings and start creating other things, such as starry empires. You see, we're coming down in layers here. So to create starry empires, you don't really go directly to the universal cosmic fluid. You use something that was already modified from the universal cosmic fluid. So there are groups of spirits that are able to, from cosmic dwellings, transform them and create starry empires. Similarly, another group of spirits, we're coming down, so less evolved than the prior ones, are able to create galaxies from starry empires. Several different galaxies. I'm naming two of them here that are the most known to us. Milky Way, that's where we are, and our neighborhood. When you call neighbor, you think it's right there, right? It's far, but it's our neighbor, Andromeda. So galaxies are created from starry empires, that are created from cosmic dwellings, that are created from universal cosmic fluid. So at this point, we are already 4 layers down. These are not, what I'm going to show you here are not all the layers. This is almost like an academic study, okay? So let's keep going. From galaxies, we will have constellations. There are 88 constellations. I'm giving you 2 names here. Auriga is one of them. Aquarius is another one. From there, we get into actual planets. So here are some: Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, several. In our solar system. That's only in our solar system. So you see, when you get to the planet level, you're really far from the universal cosmic fluid. Really, really, really far. Within the planet, so let's consider us now. It's becoming a little bit more tangible because that's where we are. So we understand, our minds can administer the word Earth or planet. Within the planet, we have imponderable matter, and from there, ponderable matter. So you see, to get to ponderable matter, which is, the matter as we know, a chair, a desk, physical bodies, all that we can look and see, things that we get to know by using our 5 senses. Okay, these are things that belong to the ponderable matter category. To get there from the universal fluid, there were a lot of transformations, many, many, many transformations. And one thing that we need to consider is this: the degree of purity of the fluid. The highest you are, the more pure the fluid is. When you coming down from universal cosmic fluid, if you're coming down, the degree of purity is going to be less and less and less and less. So 100% purity is only up there, universal cosmic fluid. So that we can continue here. We here incarnated, even the discarnates in the planet, okay? But let's consider us, humans incarnated. We are at the ponderable matter level. There's no way we can touch the universal cosmic fluid, the pure one, the original one. We can't do that. That's not for us. It's going to take a long time for us to be able to do this. Anyhow, let's continue. Right there on the top layer, universal cosmic fluid, only one can touch that, which is God. God creates that. He's the only one. God is the only one that gets to that level. On the next 5 levels, with what I'm displaying here, there are groups of spirits that can modify and touch those. They have generic names. Andre Luiz calls them by 4 different names: divine intelligences, or great devas, or archangels, or glorious intelligences. These are kind of groups of spirits that are much more evolved than we are, and much more advanced than we are, and they are able to touch those fluids, those layers of fluids. Down here in imponderable and ponderable matter, who touches that? Who modifies that? Us. Spirits, discarnates or incarnated within the planet. So spirits and human intelligences, human intelligences. So we're talking about, incarnates. So we as spirits incarnated here, we cannot create a planet. We cannot create constellations, because that's for other groups and levels of spirits much more advanced than we are. So anyway, all of this is to, I want to show a little bit more, but all of this is to kind of create awareness, I would say, about the word universal cosmic fluid, because a lot of times in a regular ongoing conversation within the Spiritist centers, or talking about Spiritism, we will say something like this: oh, when I touch the universal cosmic fluid, I can modify the universal cosmic fluid. Well, we got to be a little careful there, because it's not really the universal cosmic fluid. It's not exactly that. What we can change is the planetary fluid at the planet level. For example, we cannot change the fluid in Jupiter or in Mars. We can only change, of course, the fluid within the planet that we are. So we can, when we say, usually most of the times when we say, I can modify the universal cosmic fluid to create this and that, we're not referring to the actual universal cosmic fluid all the way up there. We are referring to the planetary fluid. Under the planetary fluid, then we have 2 levels: spiritual fluids that account for everything imponderable or imponderable matter, and what we call material fluids, which account for everything ponderable matter. Material fluids are fluids that we have in our daily lives, anything material. So we have solids, liquids, gases, all the types of matter, ponderable matter. So those we call material fluids. Now look at what Allan Kardec is going to tell us in the book of Genesis. Let me give you a side note here. The book of Genesis is the last book in the Spiritist Codification, written by Allan Kardec. By then, he had already 12 years of experience writing about it, going to Spiritist meetings every single week, never failed, study more, asking the smart questions that he did all the time to all these spirits. So he had a lot more experience, and he had a lot more information to be published than originally in the Spirit's book. So here's something he's going to tell us. The solidification of matter. Okay, solidification of matter means we are at the ponderable matter level, lowest possible level. The solidification of matter is in reality only a transitory state of the universal fluid after all the modifications, which can return to its primitive state. What is a primitive state? Anything above that, right? When the conditions needed for cohesion cease. So it's transitory in the sense that things change. The intelligent principle acts upon matter, changing things. Atoms recombine themselves, molecules recombine themselves. The entire creation happens because of that. So everything material is transitory And that's why we usually say our physical bodies are transitory. They're going to stay, and they're going to be, all the physical elements of it are going to be recombined after we die, and something else is going to happen with them. Okay, so he's trying to explain that to us. Coming back to something that we showed last week here, there are three elements then, okay, in creation: God, spirit, and matter. We saw this last week as well. This is called the Universal Trinity. It's in the Spirit's book, question 27. Now that we've been through all of this fluid thing and all this explanation, when we say matter, that includes both imponderable and ponderable matter. It's not only matter as we know in the physical plane. Physical plane is, there's matter here, but there's imponderable matter. What is imponderable matter again? It's matter in such a way that we cannot perceive with our five senses. We need other mechanisms to perceive those. Those mechanisms are called vital centers, or some people like to call chakras. That's what they are. They are for this. Okay? All right. So I want to bring like kind of a wrap up what we're talking about today with one very interesting paragraph in the book of Genesis by Allan Kardec. It's a relatively long paragraph, so I broke in 4 parts so we can, discuss each phrase individually and extract more from it. So this is in chapter 14, item 5. This is what he's going to say. The starting point for the universal fluid is its degree of absolute purity, right? Absolute purity, all the way up there, about which nothing can give us an idea. It's hard to grasp. We can't. How can we know something we never see, we never touch it, so we can't. The opposite point, so one point is all the way up there, absolute purity. The opposite point is its transformation, it's into tangible matter. So remember, it starts up here, goes through a million transformations, and it gets to tangible matter, tangible to us, okay, here on earth, tangible matter. So those are the two extremes. All the way up, absolute purity. All the way down, tangible matter. He continues. Between these two extremes are innumerable transformations that approximate one stream or the other to varying degrees. So there are several innumerous transformations between the top and the bottom. For study purposes, I showed you some here. I showed you like 7 layers, 6 or 7 layers, so we can understand and grasp the general concept. But there are innumerable transformations. He continues. The fluids closest to materiality, meaning down, right, all the way down, and consequently the least pure, comprise what may be called the spiritual atmosphere of the earth. Later on, Andre Luiz is going to use a different word. He's going to use the word psychosphere. But that's what it is the spiritual atmosphere of the earth. So what is the spiritual atmosphere of the earth, or psychosphere? It's this combination, is comprised of these fluids close to materiality. Okay? And he will conclude the paragraph with this. It is within this environment, also comprised of various degrees of purity, that the incarnate and discarnate spirits of the earth absorb the elements needed for the economy of their existence. Meaning, we incarnate and discarnate spirits of the earth are on the 2 levels down, right? The 2 bottom levels, where you have imponderable matter and ponderable matter. That's where we are. And those are different for each planet. For example, the planetary fluid for Saturn is not the same as ours. So the imponderable and ponderable matter in Saturn is not the same as ours. Same for Jupiter, same for anything else that you can think of, any other or planet, because each one has its own planetary fluid, which again is already a modification, or even better, transformation of the original absolute purity based universal cosmic fluid. Okay, and here's Allan Kardec again, so we can wrap up this idea about fluids. The fluidic elements of the spirit world are outside the scope of our analytical instruments and the perception of our senses. That means we don't have instruments, technology to detect those. Our 5 senses do not perceive those fluidic elements of the spirit world, which have been made, right? Our senses, which have been made for tangible matter and not ethereal matter. So the idea that we are going to see something, see meaning using our eyes, our vision, we are going to see something in the spirit world does not apply, because that's not the visual apparatus is not adequate for that, is not made for that, will not help us with that at all. Nothing that we have in terms of 5 senses is going to help us see these fluidic elements. So Allan Kardec is in the book of Genesis, right? What I have here, I want to show you. He goes at length. There's an entire chapter, a long chapter, chapter 14, where he's going to discuss exactly that. He's going to, it's a long chapter talking about fluids and how things happen, how they interact. What we did today is we used, as a reference, we used the book of Genesis by Allan Kardec, and we also used this book here, Evolution in Two Worlds by Spirit Andre Luiz. So what we did today is compile that information and bring it to you. Once again, we don't want to go too deep in the study of fluids because it's very long, very complex. And our purpose is to study evolution. So I just needed this little bit about fluids to help us understand what's going to come in the next weeks. And fluids is something that we can study years and years and years. And there's always more. It's incredible. By the way, as science progresses, remember, progress and science and Spiritism are together on this. As science progresses, they are able to bring us more information. We find more stuff every day. Quantum mechanics finds stuff, almost every day, and science is there, bringing new information. So that information that comes from science, especially at the level of, I would say, technology that we are able to detect these subparticles, subatomic particles. It makes a lot of sense to us now when we go back to the Spiritist literature in general, and spirits will say things that it wouldn't make any sense 50 years ago, for example, or maybe 100 years ago. And you look at them and you say, I don't know what is being said here, because we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have the ability to detect what was being said. It was not something that we were ready for. Okay, guys. So we're going to stop here today. Fluids deserves a different study. So very likely when we complete evolution, and we're not going to complete it this year, it's a long, long, long thing. Weeks and weeks and weeks ahead of study and trading information with you. But most likely fluids is going to be the next thing. Okay. Okay, so as always, I appreciate your participation. You're always welcome to participate with us, and we are going to publish the question of the week. Okay, so actually, as I'm speaking to you, I'm publishing this. Okay, so I just published that. Um, you know, participate with us, join us in casting your your answers. One important thing is we do not whatsoever, we do not collect any information from you. It's totally anonymous. No name, no email address, no phone number, no cell number, no IP address, nothing at all. It's totally 100% anonymous, guaranteed. So that makes it, if that makes you feel a little better to participate with us, please, I encourage you to go and cast your answer. And, you can always also email to us at kardakradio.com for comments and suggestions. Okay, and even if you're not watching us live, you can always post your questions there. They'll make its way to me somehow, and we will address every question that we have through the programs or in between programs for those who cannot participate live. Every single question will get answered. Okay. All right, guys. So if you're watching us live, stick around. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to have Simone Neto with her program right here on Kardec Radio, Universal Truth. So be well, and God bless us all. Thanks so much.